Hello, and thank you for joining me at Spooky Reviews. I'm the Ghostess, and when it comes to sci-fi and horror stories, I think the briefer the better. The more my imagination has to try to figure out the unknowns, the deeper the overall concept gets embedded into my brain, and the greater the impact overall. I think that's why I've always been attracted to horror anthology series. Starting back when I was a kid with Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps, I have worked my way up through Tales from the Crypt, Twilight Zone, Night Gallery, Outer Limits, Master of Horror series, all the way to today, to one of my favorite shows currently airing, Black Mirror.
Black Mirror is an anthology series that originally aired in 2011 on Channel 4 in England before getting picked up in 2016 by Netflix. Each episode is speculative fiction with an existential edge, focusing on our relationship with social media and technology that both makes our lives more convenient and more complicated at the same time. It was created by writer Charlie Brooker, the magnificent mind behind my favorite British zombie series, Dead Set, which I highly recommend. He serves as one of the show's main writers, especially in the early seasons, and executive produces alongside Annabelle Jones. While each episode stands on its own, there are a lot of interwoven details that hint at a broader Black Mirror universe. And while I enjoy a little Easter egg hunting, I'm not about to make a beautiful mind bulletin board over whether or not the bunny is real. So I don't think about the other plot lines in the series when considering each episode's individual universe.
In celebration of season 7, I decided to rewatch this entire series and, as with everything I love, rank and review each episode. I modified my normal spooky scale to fit Black Mirror's measurements, and today I am going to share those evaluations with you alongside some of my personal fan art animation. So, here is every Black Mirror episode as of this recording, ranked and reviewed from worst to first. Let's begin our countdown with
Number 34. Maisy Day. Paparazzi equals bad, plus there's a werewolf. Yeah, it's probably no surprise this one ranks so low. The technology angle is very limited, and it doesn't exactly put the care into characters. And even though the werewolf aspect comes right out of left field, I still saw it charging at me from a mile away. It makes me laugh, but not in a way that I think they intended. And outside of it starring Zazie Beetz, it really doesn't have much going for it. Number 33. Men Against Fire. The monsters are in the eye of the beholder. I honestly forget about this episode outside of its main twist, and when I sat down to watch it for this countdown list, I remembered why. It's actually a very plausible thing I could see the military doing in a very horrific, dystopian kind of way, but the execution of the idea falls flat for me somehow. I think the soldier characters are written in a really cliche way, which might be by design, but holds it back, and it suffers from an over-exposition for a concept that's made really clear through visual storytelling, weighing the story down as it sluggishly crawls across the finish line, instead of the gut punch climax I think they were going for. Number 32. Smitherines. Hostage negotiating, don't text and drive PSA. This is the one on the list that I completely forgot existed until I sat down to rewatch the series. And even though I just watched it, not a ton sticks out in my mind. Both Andrew Scott's and Topher Grace's acting chops are on full display. They're just not given very much to do. While I find it interesting to see how the police and company handle the hostage situation, of all the stories Black Mirror has told, this one felt like the weakest. And I don't really think it reached the emotional heights it was really aiming for. Number 31. The Waldo Moment. Big Blue Bear on the ballot box. There's just something about a country backing up a cartoon character who knows nothing about politics, resorts to childish name-calling, and is just a big distraction to the country so the real lawmakers can get across their sinister agendas. That all feels strangely relevant in this day and age. As with Smitherines, the episode is grounded in a very present-day reality that makes the event seem very plausible, and although it doesn't reach that episode's emotional heights, the emotional heights it does reach are completely earned For an episode that prominently features a profane cartoon screaming at a politician, it's one of the more quiet and subtle episodes of Black Mirror overall. And while it's not my favorite to revisit by any means, this outing gets a little better every time I sit down to watch it. Number 30. Striking Vipers. Let's play Sex Tekken. I have a lot of trouble pinpointing exactly why this one makes it so low in my rankings. It's not a bad episode. It has a pretty cool core concept, and I appreciate the way that it explores fidelity, gender identity, and sexual orientation. There's just something about it that didn't really flip my switch. And as much as I love an exploration of queerness, the video game world was far more interesting than anything else that was happening on screen. And while I understand why it wasn't the focus, I wish we spent a lot more time there. Maybe the stakes just don't feel high enough to get me invested, but I've just never felt an urge to rewatch this one outside of making this rankings list. Ultimately, for me, the 5th season was the most disappointing, which is why all of its episodes are on the bottom bunk of this rankings list. Number 29. Hotel Reverie. This is why we need rehearsals. I really wanted to like this episode. It has such a cool core concept, with enough material that it could have spread over several episodes. And I think trying to get it all into one piece ended up making it feel rushed, and didn't give me the emotional impact I think they expected. I think Issa Rae does a good job playing her character, but not when her character is playing the other character. She never really seemed fully immersed into the movie universe, and that disconnect kind of affected the overall experience. Even though it fell a little flat, it was still a fun entry with a cool aesthetic, and I look forward to seeing how the show might expand on this same technology in future episodes. Number 28. Rachel, Jack, and Ashley 2. When a Disney Channel original movie gets an existential crisis. This one gets kind of a bad rap. It feels surprisingly kid-friendly, with a gray-washed teen sleepover movie vibe, very off from the rest of the Black Mirror universe. Even the violence and action sequences feel cartoony and consequence-free, which prevents it from feeling fully three-dimensional. However, I think there's clear intention in playing with all the teen movie cliches that brings the tone together with the story, and helps turn it on its head with its technological twist. While it's far from perfect, and I'm not entirely sure how I feel about Miley Cyrus being this universe's Trent Reznor, the premise is still pretty solid and feels all the more plausible in a post-Free Britney world. Number 27. Eulogy. Memories made in memoriam. There's a real beauty at the center of this episode, and Paul Giamatti really does give it his all. I really liked the main imagery of the two wandering around the photographs, and thought the idea of her face being scratched out added a nice visual kick. But personally, I found the plot to be a little too saccharine and schmaltzy. The dynamic the man had with the eulogy guide made me think that the reveal might have been that she herself was the consciousness of the dead woman, and the fact that it ended up being her daughter didn't really click to me. So while there was something about this episode that I wasn't entirely buying, I still really appreciate the idea and the visual design they came up with to express it. Number 26. Demon 79. Boney M. Demon Apocalypse Disco. I really liked a lot about this episode. The drive-in slasher movie opening credits had me totally hooked, and I thought the aesthetic was on point. I also really like Boney M, so getting to hear their music throughout it made me want to dance a little bit, and found the demon wearing him as a mask to be a delightfully absurd addition. My biggest problem with this episode is that it just doesn't feel like an episode of Black Mirror. I mean, there's nowhere written that says that it has to be science fiction or based on some sort of technology. It's just kind of in the title. It's so hard to match this episode to anything else in its universe. Still, I found it to be very enjoyable, despite the fact that by the end, I'm not sure what I was supposed to get out of it. If this was from any other series, I would probably have ranked it higher, but I can't in good conscience put it anywhere else on this list. Number 25. USS Callister Into Infinity, aka USS Callister 2 Electric Boogaloo. While I didn't love that this show decided to do a direct sequel, if they were going to pick any episode, this was the one that I could see more from. And I thought the direction they took it in was both logical and interesting to see for characters both in and outside of the game. How would independently conscious NPCs live out their life in an interactive online universe like this? It was longer than the original, and I feel like I know where they could have trimmed some of the fat, but it was still a very cool virtual adventure, and I enjoyed getting to see these characters again, even if I was missing Michaela Cole. Number 24. The National Anthem. Porking out. Some episodes of Black Mirror create a fully realized and plausible universe, or invent some new piece of technology that seems strangely tempting with a corruptible darkness. But in the very first episode of Black Mirror, the Prime Minister has to fuck a pig to save a princess's life. It's definitely a strange note to start off on, and I can understand why a lot of people are not a fan. But you can't say it's not memorable. Every time I watch this episode, I like it a little bit more. It's shorter than most, and while there's a subtle incline to the rising action, it escalates in a very clever way, showing how political factions react to public outcry, and how media coverage, obsessing over the nitty-gritty details, can have catastrophic consequences. You really start to feel for the protagonist, as it becomes more and more apparent that he will have to perform an act of bestiality in order to save his reputation. And I'm not sure that's a sentence that's been said very often. And it definitely set the tone that says anything is possible in the world of this show. Number 23. Archangel. Fiery helicopter parenting crash. I knew moms like this growing up, and I thank my lucky stars that they weren't my own. And this episode does a very solid job showing what happens to a teen when their parents spend their formative years hovering over one's shoulder with an umbrella, sheltering them from experiencing the world. While this example is to an obvious extreme, it depicts both sides of the situation in a sympathetic light. The technology gives instantaneous relief to every mother's biggest anxieties, and it's depicted almost like an addiction. With Jodie Foster in the director's chair, you can see a clear intention behind the framing of each scene. And while Rosemary DeWitt and Brenna Harding do fine work on their own, I never actually bought the mother-daughter relationship in their scenes. And while some of the helicopter mothers I've met did have the occasional shenanigans that only gave their child the illusion of freedom, they were also the kind of parents who'd be very confrontational with all of their concerns. And the fact that the mother never actually addressed the issues with her daughter made it seem like their relationship's closeness was on a very surface level, and that lack of chemistry kept me from giving this story a higher score. Number 22. Hang the DJ. Matchmaker Madness. For me, romance has rarely been a draw in and of itself, and I prefer it be taken with a dash of dystopia. This story, set in a matchmaking commune, reminded me a lot of Parts the Clonus horror, and to a lesser extent, its 2000s ripoff, The Island, and I spent the episode wondering when the other shoe was going to drop and someone got harvested for their organs, but I'm happy with the direction it went in instead. Like in Sanjunapro, the technology lives in a gray area that is ethically dubious, but the overall end result maintains a genuine sweetness. The leads play off each other in a very natural way, and while I think the simulation scenario is a little bizarre, I'm willing to suspend my disbelief for the sake of a cute story. While it didn't quite hit the perfect note for me, it still plucked a few heartstrings and came together with a simple harmony that I have definitely grown to love. Number 21. Be Right Back. Downloadable Dearly Departed. This one has really grown on me over time. It's a sweet and subtle examination of grief and its coping mechanisms, as illustrated through a social media app that replicates the personality of a loved one, based on their publicly recorded personas. The plot isn't particularly complicated, but the story is still captivating, painting a very melancholy portrait of a woman in mourning, and your heart just breaks alongside hers every step of the way. While it's admittedly a small part of the story, it gets extra freakiness bonus points for me for the straight to your home, fresh in the box, freeze-dried plastic-wrapped man meat that has to be grown in the bathtub. And the unsettling tip about don't open the bathroom door just makes my imagination run wild with body horror. And it was just the extra little spice this episode needed to put it over the edge. Number 20. Loch Henry. True crime hits a little too close to home. A filmmaker uncovers more than they bargained for while creating a documentary about a famous killer from his own hometown. I'm a bit of a true crime nut, so on subject matter alone, this one got me fully invested. There's a voyeuristic quality as they unearth the small town's violent history, hearing the story secondhand through characters, expositional news reports, and eventually the killer's own trophy VHS collection. It's extremely compelling, and I was impressed how they managed to make it grim and gripping with hints of grotesque without showing us any of the gore. The cinematography is crisp and gorgeous, and much like one of the characters points out, it really makes me want to take a vacation in such idyllic countryside. It definitely wants to talk about true crime culture and how it fetishizes the gory details and what effects it has on the real people attached to the stories. I'm just not entirely sure what it wants me to take away from that conversation. There are also a few strange choices I didn't quite understand. The inclusion of Come Baby Come being a fairly distracting one that took me right out of the dramatic reveal. Still, it had very enjoyable characters and just enough that's fucked up to make for an entertaining entry of this series. Number 19. Plaything. Tamagotchi on my mind and you won't let go. I didn't really love that 2 out of 6 of Season 7's episodes piggybacked off of previous hits, so I was skeptical from the jump knowing that this connected back to Bandersnatch, but I was pleasantly surprised. The episode stood on its own 2 feet, and had a clever, original idea that was really brought to life by the sound design. The main character, whether in his older form being interrogated or younger self becoming obsessed with the throng, felt very real to me, and there was a sense of wicked joy that carried the storyline to the end. I even liked the corresponding Netflix app game, Thronglets, filled with exactly the kind of weirdness and existential dread you would expect from a Black Mirror video game. While it didn't exactly knock my socks off, it was a very fitting entry for the series. Number 18. Crocodile. Chain reaction murder spree. Sometimes Black Mirror executes an extremely dark joke that's so messed up it burrows its way deep into my memory. And Crocodile has a final punch-in-the-gut punchline that will leave you reeling. Vicious, visceral, and very upsetting. The namesake for the episode got lost between the drafts, but Andrea Riseborough does a fantastic job embodying a dangerous predator lurking in an unassuming form. Her first kill is even kind of a hug turned into a death roll. There's almost a farcical escalation to her sinister deeds, each victim killed in order to cover up her connection to the previous death. In that same way, we see how the recaller can appear benign and casual, fully integrated into their world, but with each new probe into a person's memory, it reveals more private and personal information, eventually uncovering something it can't unsee. Seeing the way these 2 stories weave together create a gripping tension that you just can't look away from, and that wicked edge makes this episode so much fun to revisit. Number 17. Metalhead. Menacing military marauding metal murder machines. The first time I saw this episode, I wasn't in love. My favorites are usually the high cerebral, existential crisis, punch-in-the-gut, plot-twisty mindfucks, that this seemed so ordinary in comparison. But when I've gone back from time to time to rewatch my favorites, this steadily made its way into the rotation. This episode exchanges technology exposition for pure action, and it manages to pack a lot into a very short runtime. It's certainly the most ambitious effects-wise, and I think it holds up very well, especially compared to some Hollywood productions that had a Scrooge McDuck budget and didn't pull off something this consistently solid. I think its major flaw is the final reveal that shows the contents of the box that the whole mission was about. And I've heard some fan theories that try to retroactively make this episode make more sense, and while I appreciate the effort on behalf of the fans, I'm not really buying it. Still, it's very fun, effective, and to the point, and seeing that one I enjoy this much end up smack dab in the center of the list just tells you how great this series is overall. Number 16. Nosedive. Free solo social climbing. I know a lot of people would have probably ranked this a lot higher, but here's the thing. I'm a really big fan of the show Community, and the 5th season has one of my favorite episodes that has this exact same premise, featuring an app that functions as a ranking system for the people around you, which ends up separating the entire school into a caste system based on their number, escalating quickly into a pretty funny homage of dystopian stories. And so it's hard for me to watch this without thinking, it's Meow Meow Beans. It's just Meow meow beans. The community episode is obviously sillier and far less nuanced, but it did come out first. But what the Black Mirror version lacks in 100% creativity, it far more than makes up for with excellent choices. Bryce Dallas Howard gave this performance 110%, and a creamsicle pastel aesthetic contrasts nicely with the protagonist's plight. It's one of the few Black Mirror episodes that ends on an optimistic note, and still goes down as an excellent addition to this series. Number 15. Bête Noire. Malevolent Mandela Effect Mystery. I thought this episode was a total blast. There's a little bit of hamminess that feels intentional, tied all together with a very effective style. And both lead actresses played it up in a way that helped suspend my disbelief. And nothing meets the crossroads of disgusting, sinister, and hilarious like a menacing milk jug. I also read that there are 2 versions of this episode, one where it starts as Barney's chicken and ends up Bernie's, and one where it starts as Bernie's and ends up as Barney's, just to extend a little gaslighting onto the audience. I definitely caught on to what was happening a little faster than the protagonist, but I still enjoyed watching the whole thing unfold. Number 14. Joan is awful. Netflix identity theft. I honestly love everything I've ever seen Annie Murphy do, and this was no exception. Her performance is one of the episode's greatest strengths, but it also has a cool but nightmarish concept that explores our sense of identity in a world that uses artificial intelligence to increase our personally curated experiences at the cost of our privacy and autonomy, and about the sinister information lurking in the fine print of agreements we sign without care, and did so in a far more palatable way than South Park. It touches interestingly on the subtle distortion of truth through adaptation, with each new layer of Joan being a harsher representation than the last. And Selma Hayek did a great job playing bitch Joan and herself as Annie Murphy. I kinda wanted them to go even deeper. Like, who do you think Cate Blanchett saw playing Joan in her universe? Meryl Streep? Probably Meryl Streep. Overall, this episode brings a lot of humor to an idea that is, quite frankly, horrific, invasive, and humiliating, to create an episode that is thoroughly entertaining, conceptually freaky, and an excellent way to start off season 6. Number 13. Common People. Premium Plan Platinum Plus Existence. Season 7 of Black Mirror has a lot of fun episodes, with colorful concepts and cool virtual worlds to explore, and somewhat optimistic endings, and fun adventures. And while that's all well and good and has its place, a lot of it lacked that signature soul-crushing crunch I've come to expect. Luckily, we started it off with Common People. Rashida Jones and Chris O'Dowd have a very likable chemistry that anchors this story to its emotional center, and my heart was absolutely broken for them. And Tracy Ellis Ross puts the perfect, insincerely concerned smiling face to the sinister metaphor for American medical care. They establish a pattern in the rising action of the plot that makes the escalation of events feel predictable, but also makes their tragic consequences feel inevitable. And your stomach just tightens every time there's a new upgrade to the life extension software. And even with such serious subject matter and melancholy tone, it still managed to get some laughs out of me, particularly in how the targeted ads seemed to be throwing shade at everybody in the room. While the commentary was a little on the nose, I still found it to be a poignant snapshot of a very real issue, illustrated in a way that was easy to digest, and helped add a much-needed bleakness to this season. Number 12. White Bear. Torture a torturer tourist trap. One thing Black Mirror does exceedingly well is putting the audience in the position of feeling empathy towards someone, only to have the rug be pulled out when it's discovered that person has done something horrifically despicable. It points to that gray area in our life where we must question the ethics of public opinion, spectacle, and that instinct of schadenfreude that makes us want to see bad people get punished. With hints of Moira Hindley woven into the backstory, there's a very palpable sense of wicked glee throughout this entire episode. It's got fast-paced energy and a punch-in-the-gut ending that makes up for this sort of what the fuck elements to the premise. Like, this is the routine they do every day? Seems like a lot of exposition you have to get across in order for this to be effective. It's one of the more brutal, action-packed episodes of the series, especially for the BBC era, and the first episode that really highlighted this series' potential for horror stories. Regardless of its flaws, it's an intense roller coaster ride that I honestly wish I could erase from my brain so I could experience it like it was the first time every time. Number 11. Playtest. Mainframe in the membrane. I'm a horror babe by trade, and this episode was right up my alley. It reminded me a bit of 1408, with this inescapable hellscape built on the occupant's own mind, and the character unable to tell reality from fantasy. And as much as I enjoy the work of Stephen King and John Cusack, I think this episode knocks the concept out of the park. The protagonist has a very likable energy that gets tragically whittled down to pure panic over the course of the story, and the actor does a great job playing both extremes. It keeps you guessing right until the very end and then smacks you across the face. It has some very effective jump scares, and I love the way that it reincorporated things we saw throughout the story to tie into his mind's universe. That makes all the more sense with the dramatic reveal. While the twist might be well-traveled territory, it does so in a way that harkens back to those classic Twilight Zone episodes in how effectively it's all integrated. Number 10. Black Museum. A tour through tech tragedies. This 3 Tales in One episode was clearly inspired by White Christmas, and while I don't think it was nearly as successful, I still found it to be super fun. It came at it with a completely different tone. It feels a lot more like a special than like a regular episode, the museum itself being a wonderland of Easter eggs, and there's a tongue-in-cheek charming smarm to how each of the tales in the episode is told. You can really feel the Penn and Teller inspiration for the museum curator's character, and he brought just the right amount of sleaze and slime to his unreliable narration that made him both the scum of the earth and extremely entertaining to listen to, which I think helps cushion each devastating blow as we hear the horrific fates of those connected to the different displays. It has excellent dark comedic timing and knows exactly how to taper the tone down to disturbing when we get to the final sequence. Black Museum is a terrific tour through technological existential terror that's more than worth the price of admission, and certainly worth revisiting in the future. Number 9. Bandersnatch. Choose Your Own Misadventure. I totally loved Choose Your Own Adventure books when I was a kid, and creating an interactive story with multiple plot threads on a platform like Netflix is an incredible idea, and they went about it in such a Black Mirror way. What a fantastic format for exploring destiny, fate, and free will. I've watched it every possible pathway now, and appreciate how well it all tied together no matter which direction you go, helped by the fact that gaps and inconsistencies feel intentional with the way the story evolves. They utilize the presentation as a pivotal part of the story, and it kept you guessing how each decision was going to pan out. Its unrelentingly 1980s aesthetic adds a cherry on top, and Will Poulter's character was an absolute gem. He made such a strong impression that they brought him back for season 7, and his short appearance was one of the highlights of Plaything. It's possible I'm just a sucker for the story format, or that totally tubular style, or all the self-aware winks to the audience, or maybe it's just the grotesque horror pathways you can take the protagonist. It's a wholly unique, trippy little mindfuck maze, not unlike the video game the character is inventing, and I love it from start to finish and back again. Number 8. The Entire History of You. A frantic scramble down memory lane. This was actually the very first episode of the show I ever saw, and it was all I needed to become obsessed with this series. It's a simple snapshot depicting the day-to-day life of those living with a grain, a piece of technology that allows its user to review their own memories. This obsessive self-reflection slowly destroys the protagonist's peace of mind as he picks apart everything from his job interview to his relationship, pinpointing the flaws and unable to stay in the present. It's the kind of erosion that always ruins relationships, but the speculative technology helps highlight that problematic tendency we have to overanalyze. It's not a complicated drama, but its characters feel very real and their pain is palpable, amplified by sharp pacing and subtle performances. While it certainly isn't the most explosive or devastating episode, it's definitely one I recommend looking back at again and again and again. Number 7. Beyond the Sea. Retro-futuristic wife swap. I love me a good alternate timeline, especially when you can make every aspect of the universe feel very real. And this one looks incredible head to toe. The whole style of the episode sweeps me right off my feet, just slightly overshadowing the substance of this intense emotional story. There is some era-appropriate objectification of the wives and children of both astronauts that doesn't feel fully fleshed out in one direction or another, but everyone was still very three-dimensional. Aaron Paul did an incredible job playing both characters, showing the intensity in his range, and I never once saw a shred of Jesse Pinkman or heard a drop of Todd Chavez in his performance. Josh Hartnett equally disappeared into his role, and I was thrilled to see my favorite Culkin bust out his best Manson family intensity as the leader of the home invaders. The episode is unnerving in small waves throughout the plot, and that shiv in the side of an ending brings everything to an intense finale. That final silent exchange of facial expressions between Paul and Hartnett is goddamn perfection. Especially for a late series entry, this episode is totally out of this world. Number 6. Sanjunapro. Comatose lesbian makeout party. While you could make an argument for Be Right Back and 15 Million Merits, Sanjunapro was truly the first romantic episode of Black Mirror, and it set an emotional standard moving forward that no episode has touched. The story unfolds slowly with very natural exposition and a very believable chemistry between the leads. I think the only thing keeping it from getting higher marks was the turnaround at the end feels a little rushed. Kelly has a big dramatic speech, gets into a car crash, and decides she's totally fine joining Yorkie and Sanjunapro. But I understand that's where the story needed to end up eventually, and I'm happy we got there however we got there. Not only was this a bittersweet reflection on life, it was visually and auditorily stunning. The virtual world made stellar aesthetic choices, and it was so much fun just time hopping around. I could rant on for a long time about whether our consciousness would actually be extended by this process, or are they simply duplications, and if the me who could experience life has physically stopped existing, would I truly be the one within the virtual world, or would I simply stop experiencing existence while a copy of me is partying it up for all eternity? But instead, I'll say that other than a philosophical conundrum, this episode gives me the warm and fuzzies, and has a certain magic that Black Mirror keeps trying to recapture with episodes like Hang the DJ and Hotel Reverie, but this one will always have that special place in my heart. Number 5. Shut Up and Dance. Internet troll scavenger hunt. Some episodes become a comparison standard between seasons, like Hang the DJ's the Sanjunapro of season 4. Well, Shut Up and Dance is the white bear of its season, and manages to outshine it with a sleeker presentation. It follows a seemingly innocent character through a horrific ordeal, and then bam! This episode flips the script, and then the whole table along with it. All that sympathy you felt twists up in your gut, almost making you mad at the episode for screwing with your mind. The audience is left wondering where the line between justice and justifying your own sadistic treatment of another human being is, especially when you can hide behind a wall of anonymity like the internet. I think what takes the episode to the next level is how none of this had to take place in the future. We've seen these sort of situations unfold online before, when manipulative internet trolls gather data to use as blackmail. For something this joyfully cruel, there are also moments when I found myself laughing out loud, from the characters trying to maintain a sense of normalcy in a situation so tense you could tap dance across it. And that Radiohead song, Exit Music, was the perfect icy capper to a chillingly dark story. Overall, this one is a must-see, what the hell, oh my god kind of episode. And it has those little moments that are very rewarding on rewatch. Number 4. Hated in the Nation. Hashtag not the bees! I love a good police procedural murder mystery, and the way this one unfolds is very clever. It was really good at building up tension and providing enough fast exposition that I totally believed everything they were throwing at me. On top of being a fun story, I think it's a very artful illustration about the dangers of a hive mind mob mentality, and how that reflects on our understanding of accountability and blame, especially in a world with an omnipresent social media and surveillance state government that allows allows people to passively scrutinize each other's behavior. I think they could have left out the villain motivation, as the message comes across pretty loud through their actions. The lead detective, Karen Park, whose testimony frames the entire story, is one of my all-time favorite Black Mirror characters. She has a sharp wit and a laid-back self-confidence, with a sort of been-there-done-that attitude, which contrasts nicely with her rookie partner's enthusiasm and modern approach to problem-solving. And I would honestly watch the hell out of their crime procedural spin-off. All of the elements come together so well that I think it stands as a perfect representation of what a Black Mirror episode should be. Number 3. USS Callister. To infinity and beyond fucked up. This episode is just pure fun. I've never been much of a Trekkie, but I have seen the entire original series, and this pays homage to it in such a loving, dedicated way, while still putting a lampshade on its ridiculous qualities, and ties its signature cheeseball 70s style to a sinister universe of revenge fantasy. The darkly sadistic premise feels very plausible, technology willing, with impeccable comedic timing, and an adventurous storyline that keeps you engaged while still maintaining that signature Black Mirror bleakness. And it also has an amazing cast. Kristen Milioti and Jesse Plemons deliver dynamic performances no matter what side of their personalities they're portraying. And Jimmy Simpson absolutely knocks me dead. And I love that we get more Michaela Cole. We also get a vocal cameo from Aaron Paul, making this a mini Breaking Bad reunion. Even the extras are A-listers, as keen eyes can catch Kirsten Dunst, Jesse Plemons' real-life wife, walking around the office. And with the two of them plus Milioti, it's also kind of a Fargo Season 2 reunion. It's a darkly comedic, yet strangely uplifting addition to the series, and has become my favorite one to revisit over the years. Although there are a couple I think are better. Number 2. 15 Million Merits. Dystopia's Got Talent. On only the second ever installment of the series, Black Mirror demonstrated its ability to create a world all its own. A not-too-distant future dystopia with bread and circuses brought to you by Axe Body Spray. The flashing neon distractions and non-stop bombardment of ads is juxtaposed nicely with a story about a fundamentally quiet man whose unrequited affection for a tragically manipulated beauty fuels a climactic emotional rant, played with precision by Daniel Kaluuya. The gravitas he brings to the role is the beating heart of this story of desperation and despair. It's smart, sharp, soul-crushing, and strangely relevant in a world where a reality show like Beast Games is allowed to exist. Everything that Black Mirror has delivered to us since 15 Million Merits stands out as an exemplary episode and the standard to which all others should be compared. And the number 1 Black Mirror episode is White Christmas. It's a Horrible Life. Start with a healthy helping of John Hamm. Glaze it in Christmas cheer. Add a dash of holiday party eggnog. Bake for 74 minutes straight in pure tension at 666 degrees. Then sprinkle with sinister overtones and sentient technology. And you've served up one hell of a holiday treat. This episode strikes a perfect balance between dark humor and devastating blows, with a wholly original concept and performances that knock it out of the park. Outside of being a fantastic standalone episode that delivers 3 tales of Yuletide terror, it also introduces us to the concept of cookies, a quintessential piece of technology that's built upon throughout the rest of the series, which also makes it essential viewing for any Black Mirror fan. It's such an incredible blend of everything that makes Black Mirror great that it almost makes me wish it could be Christmas every day.
So that was, in my humble opinion, the ranking order for Black Mirror Season 1 through 7. Let me know in the comments below what your ranking list would be, and if there are any other shows you'd like me to rank and review every episode of, or animate. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe, and join me next time for another spooky review. See you then, and boo for now!
You can blame me, shabab shabab, try to shame me, shabab shabab, and still I'll care, shabab shabab, for you, shabab shabab. You can run around, shabab shabab, even put me down. Still I'll be there for you. The world may think I'm foolish. They can't see you like I can. Oh, but anyone who knows what love is will understand.